Hello, people. Once again, I came across another very interesting article or set of articles. They're actually talking about genetic, actually environmental genetic engineering, and this is some scary stuff here. But let's get into it. The entitled this article here is entitled "The Environment is Now the Laboratory," and they go over two articles. One dealing with talking about how they actually transferring the laboratory to the wild, an emerging era of environmental genetic engineering. And the actual article is an emerging era of environmental genetic engineering. Now, what they're basically saying is that what they're doing is they're going to transfer the laboratory to the wild in an emerging era of environmental genetic engineering. So what they've done is they've came up with these new genetic engineering techniques, such as genome editing and new delivery techniques that have facilitated an emerging trend to genetically engineer organisms in the wild. This moves the engineering process to agro ecosystems and beyond, essentially converting the environment into the laboratory. So what these people are basically doing is they're taking all this stuff they're doing in the lab and they're going to do it outside the lab, out in the world, in the real world. I mean, this is some scary stuff. So the quote goes on. The briefing presents examples of research and applications, including the development of gene-drive organisms, horizontal environmental genetic alteration agents. Listen to what that means. Horizontal environmental genetic alteration agents that deliver viruses carrying genome editing machinery directly to crop fields. The delivery of genome editing machinery to crops via pollen-mediated transfer. The application of RNA interference products directly to crops and farmed animals, and developments in penetration techniques to deliver genetic engineering tools to organisms. Are you hearing this? This means that these people, instead of them having to go into the lab, modify whatever genes and whatever organism they want to do the modifications to, what they can do now is they can take these elements that will put genes into organisms, whether it's microbes, whether it's animals, or whether it's people, or whether it's crops, or anything, where these things will go out, this machinery will go out into the environment, into the world, and put genes into these organisms, where they can put genes in the plants, put genes in the animals, put genes into us automatically or by themselves. Are you getting the ramifications of this? So continuing, the guy says, what caught my eye here was not simply the techniques for genetic editing in the field and its potential for real-time genetic editing in the field in response to any perceived emerging threat, quote unquote, to the environment, but the apt phrase that the new genetic editing technologies have essentially converted the entire environment into the laboratory. That's a convenient, though still frightening, way of saying that genetic engineering can now be done on a genuinely global and planetary scale. Are you getting the ramifications of this? We're talking about the same people that have created all these different bioweapons in the labs. They bioengineered AIDS. They bioengineered a lot of these other things out here. I mean, there's no telling how much stuff these people have been doing in labs like Fort Detrick, things of this nature. Same people who have, you can check the history on this yourself, the same people who use involuntary human experimentation on unwilling subjects. To have this type of technology where they can go out. I mean, this basically is telling you that you're not going to have any choice in what these people do, what they want to put in your genome, directly into your DNA, or the DNA of the foods you eat, or the animals that you eat. Not even, okay, even if you don't look at it from a privacy or freedom of you have, I mean, you might want to just have normal food. You might not want genetic recombinant food that you're eating. That's never, and mind you, all this stuff they talk about GMOs, it's never been tested for safety. And the few tests that they have ran have caused have major cause for concern to the effects on us and our health. The few studies they've ran, the one guy, I can't remember his name. He was a European guy. He was like the leading researcher on the GMOs. And I think he did a study on potatoes or something. He did his study. I mean, now this guy, before all this, he was one of the most acclaimed researchers in the world, not just in Europe, in the entire world in this subject. He did a study and he said there might be a chance that these potatoes, I think it were GMO potatoes, that they might cause sterility or something like that, a negative effect. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is I believe it's in, what's the guy's name? His name is Jeffrey something. But anyway, the name of the thing is called Seeds of Deception. It was like a DVD series, or 2 or 3 DVD, whole little package. It's probably on, I don't know these days if it's on YouTube or not, as much as they've been censoring things on YouTube of this nature. And he found that he was a tenured professor at, I can't remember which university. It was a European university. Tenured normally means, when you have a tenured professor, that means your employment is secured, that you're on salary, for life pretty much, or until you retire. I think he released it. His finding got released that Thursday or Friday, or I think it was a Thursday though. By Monday, he was fired, gone from the university. So you have to understand that we're talking about a lot of money and a lot of control. So these people that have these plans, they are serious about protecting this profit stream, for protecting this stuff. That's what they really want. They want the money. Or a lot of the people want the money. Some people are more into control. Because I guess once you get to a certain wealth level, it's not even about the money anymore. I mean, once you're making millions and millions of dollars, you got 3 or 4 mansions. You got every exotic car. You got cottages. You got everything, anything you could ever want. You got it. I mean, it's only so many cars, so many houses, so many clothes, so much all that stuff you can actually buy. So a lot of these people, it's not even about the money. It's really about the control and the effect that they have on the world. So, and I guess you can see up here the URL, which is right up here. If you can, I'll put it in the description. But this is some insane stuff right here. So this is the little summary of this same article. And they actually got a name for these things: horizontal environmental genetic alteration agents. I mean, this is some Frankenstein stuff here. It's totally Frankenstein. So what they're saying here is these techniques are broadening the scale and range of potentially exposed target and non-target organisms. However, there is scientific evidence that genome editing and other emerging genetic engineering technologies have a variety of unintended effects. Well, no kidding. Because think about this. Once you put these elements out into the world, if anything goes wrong with this stuff, or it's not going to be, most times it's not going to be readily apparent. And worse yet, once this stuff gets out there, it's not like you can call the stuff back and say, "Oh, sorry, we're going to kill it." No. Once it's out there, it's out there. I mean, this is totally the height of insanity. So right here is the actual paper, and I kind of glanced through it, man. But this is really some scary stuff here. If you just really think about the ramifications of what type of control and what type of unintended consequences that can come from this type of technology. Think about we talking about the same people do ethnic cleansing, the same people that want to get rid of undesirables. I mean, these same people that love eugenics. I mean, think about this type of tool. This is really a horror show. And I have not heard about this not that I watch the mainstream media that much, but I don't recall hearing anything about this type of stuff. I mean, this is totally insane. So the title of this here is Transferring the Laboratory to the Wild, an Emerging Era of Environmental Genetic Engineering. And they start off here. The last 30 years of commercialization of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have thus far been restricted to a limited number of species, predominantly maize and soy. Maize is corn, in case you didn't know. Developers are reacting to plateauing global adoption rates of these commercialized first-generation genetically engineered crops, which are plagued by declining trait efficacy and sustained market rejection, by reinvigorating efforts to usher in new crops and organisms. So what they're basically telling us here is that because people don't like this stuff, we have to ram it down their throats. You don't want this crap. I mean, most people with half a brain are like, well, why would I want this stuff? I don't know what these people are doing to this stuff. They slapping genes in and out, putting caterpillar genes in apples and all kind of crazy stuff. I mean, who wants to eat an apple with caterpillar genes in it? I mean, if the apple needed the caterpillar gene, it probably would already be there. A and B, what makes these people think that they know better what we need to eat than just eating something normal and natural? I mean, the audacity of these people. I mean, they basically have no. I mean, it's like the bull in the china shop. These people just taking genes from one species, slapping them in something else, just willy nilly. They don't have no understanding of this kind of stuff. But even worse, if they do have understanding, these people will never tell you what they're actually trying to do. They never do. No, they only inflict stuff on you afterwards. And, oh, oops, we made a mistake. Sorry, but you're dead. But you're sick. This kind of crazy stuff. So, continuing on with the paper, new genetic engineering techniques such as genome editing and new delivery techniques have facilitated an emerging trend to genetically engineer organisms in the wild, moving the engineering process to agroecosystems and beyond, essentially converting the environment into the laboratory. Now, one thing about the laboratory that you learn when you work in the laboratory is that one of the main reasons they like to have to conduct experiments in the laboratory is, one, to isolate the environment or the conditions of whatever experiment you're trying to run. But another Very important consideration is that if something goes wrong, you have whatever you're experimenting in contained inside the lab so it doesn't turn into a catastrophic release into the environment that can injure, maim, or kill the environment, animals, the ecosystem, or people, which this whole philosophy goes 100% against. Because if anything blows up, anything goes wrong with this whole process, it's just out there. And as far as I can see, I mean, how you going to call back this stuff once it's out inside of people, inside of organisms, not just inside them, inside their genetic mechanism, inside their DNA. Previous techniques originally developed as research tools in contained use settings or for gene therapy in clinical settings may be released into the environment to genetically engineer agricultural and wild organisms unchecked. These developments expand the range of species that can be engineered, increasing scalability and speeding up the development process, and can potentially circumvent regulations premised on false claims of increased safety and precision of genome editing techniques. Check that out. So they're basically saying, hey, we can unleash this stuff, and then we can break the law. We don't have to. Nobody can stop us. We can release our wonderful stuff, and nobody can say anything about it. It's out. It's just out there. But notice how arrogant they are with it. These false claims of increased safety and precision of genome editing. How dare people tell us that we don't know what we're doing? But I haven't heard anything about any kind of long-term experiment. First of all, this technology has not been out long enough for them to do any long-term experimentation on it. I mean, how are you going to run a 10-year experiment on this stuff, or even a 1-year experiment on this stuff, when the stuff is just came out? November 2019. I mean, so how you gonna, this is crazy. So listen, such, quote, environmental genetic engineering, end quote, raises heightened concerns with regard to controllability, the risk of spread and exposure, and unintended adverse effects that cannot be eliminated inside a laboratory prior to release. Genetic engineering in the wild also raises unprecedented regulatory challenges, removing our ability to risk assess these engineered organisms and products before they are introduced into the environment. This briefing presents examples of research and applications in the field of environmental genetic engineering, including the development of gene-drive organisms, horizontal environmental genetic alteration agents that deliver viruses carrying genome editing machinery directly to crop fields, the delivery of genome editing machinery to crops via pollen-mediated transfer, the application of RNA interference products directly to crops and farmed animals, and developments in penetration techniques to deliver genetic engineering tools to organisms. I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. People need to be up in arms about this. And I guess, hey, I showed you this, but hey, I'll leave the links here. I could probably go on and on. I mean, this article, I mean, there's 6 more pages to this. I mean, they're talking about the use of insect vectors as justified by DARPA to get around limitations in current technologies for mass delivery of CRISPR machinery to crop fields, such as sprays, which it claims are constrained by the need for water and irrigation infrastructure for the sustained delivery. However, using insects removes all predictability for controlling dispersal in agricultural settings, where a variety of farming practices tend to coexist. I mean, this is one more thing I'm curious because this is crazy. Just gene drive organisms. Gene drive technologies are a form of genetic engineering designed to skew the natural patterns of inheritance such that most, if not all, offspring of a target organism inherit a particular genetically engineered trait, driving it through a population. This technology has received a lot of attention because of its unprecedented biosafety, regulatory, societal, and ethical implications. Wow. Look here, gene drive organisms are being developed to disrupt genes that reduce fitness, possibly even essential for survival, to bias the sex ratio of offspring, that the overall population is reduced or eliminated, or to reduce disease transmission and disease vectors. Oh, look at this. Listen to this. Wow. Proof of concept GDOs have already been developed in numerous organisms, including mosquitoes and mammals, with the first GDO demonstrated in 2015 in yeast, and later in mosquitoes and mice. Wow. I mean, this makes Frankenstein look like, child's play. So with that, I'm just going to leave it at that. Please leave your comments and thoughts about this below or in the comments. And please subscribe because this is stuff people need to know. This is a mass insanity though. This just does not make any sense. Okay, thanks.